Have you ever felt like you're just surviving, without a clear direction? Living without specific goals might seem comfortable at first, but in the long run, it can lead to a sense of stagnation and lack of purpose. When we don't have a clear direction, our brain goes into autopilot mode, saving energy by avoiding complex decisions. However, neuroscience shows that having clear and specific goals activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and task execution. This activation not only gives us a sense of direction and purpose, but also releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward. How many times have you found yourself repeating the same mistakes that seem to sabotage your life? The cycle is always the same. We start with good intentions, but soon after a few days, hours, or even minutes, we fall back into behaviors that drag us down. In today's video, we will explore how certain behaviors affect our brains and why we remain stuck in them. We'll talk a bit about the science behind these destructive habits and learn how to break this cycle. The question is, what are these habits? Do you commit any of them? Unfortunately, the answer might be yes. In this video, I will share ways to ruin your life. If you don't want to be part of that percentage, keep watching the video. Most of us are constantly recreating our negative emotional states, mentally replaying them over and over. There comes a point where we want to change and think, I really want to be different. But here's the problem. Our body has been conditioned by years of these negative emotions, and it ends up becoming stronger than the mind. Initially, the body was just a servant of emotions, but over time, it took control. When we decide to change and face the unknown, our body resists because it is accustomed to guilt and suffering. It's familiar and predictable. Neuroscience explains that our brain prefers the known to the uncertain. So, changing is like crossing a deep river. The body knows that if you reach the other side, it will lose control and, therefore, does everything to stop you. That's why it's so difficult to break old emotional habits. The body feels it is fighting for survival, even when the change is for the better. How many times have you caught yourself making excuses not to do something? Oh, I didn't have time. It's not my fault. If it weren't for so-and-so, I would have succeeded. We've all done it. Making excuses is almost an automatic reflex when things don't go as planned. But did you know this habit has a direct impact on your brain? When you constantly blame others or circumstances, your brain goes into defense mode. This reduces the release of dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and pleasure. Imagine your brain is trying to protect you from the pain of failure. By blaming something or someone, you feel temporary relief, but in the long run, this can be harmful. The lack of dopamine creates a vicious cycle. Less motivation leads to more excuses, which leads to less personal achievement. Neuroscience shows that this lack of personal responsibility trains your brain to avoid growth and overcoming challenges. So, next time something goes wrong, instead of making excuses, try to reflect on what you can learn from the situation. Have you ever met someone who seems to complain about everything? Or maybe you find yourself constantly complaining about the weather, the traffic, the job. We've all been there. Complaining might seem like harmless venting, but did you know it can have a powerful effect on your brain? Every time you complain, you activate the amygdala, the part of the brain linked to fear and anxiety. When we're always focused on the negative, our brain starts to adjust its expectations to always anticipate the worst. This creates a permanent mental state of stress. Neuroscience shows that our brain is incredibly plastic, meaning it molds according to our thoughts and behaviors. The more you complain, the more your brain programs itself to see the world negatively. When we complain, we experience what's bad all the time, and it doesn't bring solutions or even lessen our anguish. On the contrary, we become more anxious, distressed, angry, and the situation seems worse and worse. This habit impacts not only your mental health, but also how you interact with the world. Remember, what you think and say, you become. Have you ever caught yourself saying, I can't, or I'm not capable when facing a challenge? This feeling of incapability is more common than you might think. Often, we are our own worst critics, and these seemingly harmless phrases can have a significant impact on our brain. When you constantly undervalue yourself, your brain starts to believe it. Neuroscience shows that this self-criticism reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning and decision-making. Imagine your brain as a muscle. If you always tell yourself you can't, it's like telling your muscle it can't lift weight. Over time, it really becomes weaker. Studies indicate that this belief in one's own incapacity reduces brain plasticity, making it harder to learn new skills and form new habits. Basically, your brain enters a cycle of self-sabotage. Lack of confidence leads to inaction, which further reinforces the sense of incapability. So, next time you catch yourself thinking, "I can't," try to reverse that mindset. Remember moments when you overcame challenges and use that as fuel to face new situations. Have you ever found yourself stuck in memories of the past, reliving old events and letting them consume you? We've all been there. Maybe something that happened yesterday made you angry, and today you wake up thinking about it again. It seems harmless, but living in the past can have a profound impact on your brain. According to neuroscience, when you constantly relive negative memories, you reinforce the neural connections associated with those emotions. It's like your brain is in a loop, repeating the same feelings day after day. This not only keeps these memories alive, but also shapes your current mental state. Over time, this habit can change who you are, making anger, sadness, or resentment part of your personality. Imagine starting each day with an emotional load from the past. If you do this for a week, it might seem like you're in a bad mood. If you continue for a month, it becomes a personality trait. Living in the past prevents you from enjoying the present and building a better future. Remember, what you feed in your mind becomes your reality. Have you ever felt like you're just surviving, without a clear direction? Living without specific goals might seem comfortable at first, but in the long run, it can lead to a sense of stagnation and lack of purpose. When we don't have a clear direction, our brain goes into autopilot mode, saving energy by avoiding complex decisions. However, neuroscience shows that having clear and specific goals activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and task execution. This activation not only gives us a sense of direction and purpose, but also releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward. Dopamine encourages us to act and pursue our dreams, creating a positive cycle of effort and achievement. Without goals, we lose this natural motivation, and life begins to feel like an endless series of meaningless days. Additionally, the absence of goals can increase cortisol levels, the stress hormone, making us feel anxious and overwhelmed. When we set goals, even small ones, our brain engages in a process of visualization and planning, which not only improves our focus and determination, but also helps us overcome obstacles with more resilience. This gives us a sense of progress and accomplishment, which is crucial for our emotional well-being. So instead of just surviving, set goals that inspire you and give your day-to-day life a purpose. Your brain and your well-being will thank you. So, there you have it. Making excuses, complaining about everything, feeling incapable, living in the past, and not having specific goals are habits that can ruin your life in just a few days. But the good news is that now that you understand the neuroscience behind these behaviors, you have the power to change. Remember that your brain is amazing and adaptable. By recognizing these patterns and taking conscious steps to alter them, you can reprogram your mind to be more positive, resilient, and focused. Start small. Take responsibility for your actions, focus on what you can control, believe in your ability to change, live in the present, and set goals that inspire you. It's not an immediate process, but each step in the right direction will make a huge difference in the long run. You are not stuck in habits that hold you back. You have the ability to create a life full of purpose and fulfillment. Did you like the video? If you found these tips helpful, Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends. Until the next video,